Now sure, you can go out and buy any type of SUV and tackle some roads that aren't paved, like this one here. But what if you don't want an SUV and you really like the look of a station wagon? Well, you have a couple of options and they're sort of a bit more pricey. You have the Audi Allroad and you have the Mercedes All-Terrain. But there's a third option. It's this one. It's made by the Swedes, Volvo V60 Cross Country. This thing is an impressive looking machine, but I want to find out if it's worth buying instead of going to the German alternatives. And I also want to tell you why a wagon might be a better option than going for the default SUV. And I'll do that by walking around the outside features, the inside features, and taking it for a drive off-road and on-road to let you know if it's worth considering. And now with all that said, my name's Cameron. This is Product Review Cars. Let's get into it. Now, if you like the looks of this car off-road and you want to see more off-road station wagons just like this one, make sure you hit subscribe because it's the best way to show your support for the channel. And if you're already subscribed, thank you very much. If you have anything to say, make sure you jump in the comment section down below because I'll be there replying to them and answering any comments, questions, or queries you might have. Now let's get into it. So this is currently the only flavor of V60 station wagon we get here in Australia. It's the cross-country version, so it's a bit more lifted and it's intended for a bit of all-terrain use. Now, what do you get on the outside? Well, first of all, you get a stunning example of vehicle design. I think this thing looks amazing, and as we walk around it, you'll see why that is. Specifically up front, we have LED headlights, and I do like the Thor's hammer effect of the daytime running lights, and they're also dynamic in terms of their ability to corner, and they're very reactive. So I really like the headlight setup here. Very bright as well when you turn on the high beam. You've also got a cross-country mesh grille that is specific for this car, and you also have some plastic cladding down the bottom which sort of intends the use of this to be a bit more off-road rather than having some fancy painted bumper down below. Now, in addition to that, you can see up here there's a giant space on the windshield for the safety systems in this car. There's plenty of features that this car has to keep it safe on the road. It's part of Volvo's ethos. Now, compared to an SUV, the Volvo V60 station wagon is a far better looking car than any other SUV on the market. And it's because it's a station wagon. Station wagons sit lower, they have longer lines on the roof and the body of the car, and it just looks more sculptural and more aesthetically pleasing to look at as a family car option. This car has a raised suspension of 210 millimeters for its ground clearance, and that allows you to do a bit more overlanding like this compared to a standard V60. You've also got 19-inch diamond cut alloy wheels, and they're wrapped in a Continental rubber, which are 235s both front and rear. This is more of a road terrain tire, but I would say that an all-terrain tire wouldn't be a bad option if you want to do more of this stuff. Now, I like how Volvo have finished the design back here. The roof spoiler looks really nice and sleek, and it complements the way the tailgate pinches back here. I really like how the taillights have molded out the same way, and they also have like a Thor's hammer effect. It's sort of, if you join them together, it sort of create like a hammer looking effect. That's something that Volvo does with their taillights and front running lights. You've also got Volvo spelt out across the back badging. This is the B5 version of the V60, so it means it's a mild hybrid. And below that, we have some exhaust exits with the real exhaust tips on the inside, but at least they're not fake exhaust tips like you find from brands like Audi. Oh, and if you're wondering what the license plate stands for, it literally means Volvo 1927. That's when it was founded. I don't normally point that stuff out, but I thought that was kind of cool. Now, quality is a top headline for this interior. Everything you touch is so nice to the hand. Even if you go further down the interior, it's just all high quality, from the carpets to the plastics. Everything feels really, really nice in here. And it feels like every dollar you paid is going to the quality of this car. It really feels like I spent good money if I had bought this car. There's not a stitch out of line, and I really like the driftwood inserts here, as well as the metal sort of trim that runs around this interior, around the speakers, around the shifter, around the start-stop engine button. It's all very nicely done in here. I also love the little attention detail of including the Swedish flag on the seats here. And talking about the seats, they're very comfortable, they're very easy to adjust. There's plenty of adjustment in the lumbar, the bolster, and even a leg extension. That's really cool to see, because some cars at this price point don't even come with any of those adjustments. It's just basic electric adjustment. So it's cool to see that you get nice and comfortable here. Steering wheel is telescopic, and you've got a heads-up display as well, which is adjustable, so you can be nice and comfortable in this car. Pedal box is set up nice, and then the centerpiece here is this center touchscreen. It's a 9-inch display display, and it's vertically mounted. So it's a bit more familiar if you're used to using something like a tablet. Now it does look quite daunting to use, and I will admit, and initially it was a bit frustrating to sort of find menu items really quickly, but once you got your head around how to use it, it's really easy to use. So what you've got is you've got your navigation up top, you've got your Bluetooth or media controls, and you've got your phone connection, and then you've also got whatever recent setting you've used down below. And if you use Apple CarPlay, it doesn't take up the full height of the screen, it only goes halfway up the screen, which I found a little bit annoying, but regardless, at least you can connect Apple CarPlay or Android Auto into this car. Now down the bottom, you do have your controls for your climate controls, and this has a clean zone technology, which is basically an extra cabin filtration system, which is quite cool. And then what you need to do is that if you've got these big menu items here, you want to find some fine-tuned vehicle controls, you just swipe across to the right, and it gives you everything you might need for this car. Everything from drive modes to other car controls like electronic stability to parking assists, all the way through to adjusting what safety systems you want on or off. And what I really appreciate is there's a giant home button down below, which will take you back to the home screen. And that's something some brands could take note of. That's very intuitive to see there. You've also got the hard buttons down below for your volume controls and media controls and defrosters, and obviously your hazards. So that's cool to see some physical buttons still there. As for the center tunnel here, we have wireless phone charging, which is quite cool because the way the cubbies close means that you can secure your phone in place so it doesn't slide around, which I found quite cool to see. And you can also turn this on and off, which I haven't seen in many other cars, that you can turn the wireless phone charger off. So if your phone doesn't wirelessly charge, you can turn that off and you just use it as a phone rest there. I do like the shifter design, it's quite unique. However, I do find it interesting how you have to shift through every single gear rather than being able to throw it into drive. You have to go through neutral, then drive, and then if you want to go to reverse, you have to go through neutral and then to reverse. So it's quite interesting that it makes you methodically go through that, but I guess it avoids any accidental misshifts. You're just going to be in neutral if you accidentally push it forwards. Now there are some options in here. I am sitting on some nice Napa leather, and there's a Bowers & Wilkins system in here, which is just next level awesome. You can control the sound of this car. You can go through studio, individual stage, concert hall, specifically the Gothenburg concert hall, and you even get a little bit of info about the Gothenburg concert hall when you go to select the concert hall option, and you've also got a jazz club option. So it just changes the sound profile, similar to what we saw in Genesis, but this thing is just so much better, and it's so immersive when you go into something like a concert hall mode, and when you listen to music, it just throws you into a next level immersion, and I really like the speaker system. But you do have to pay more for these speakers, and specifically that's over $5,000 because it's included with a pack, and it also includes a panoramic sunroof, which does open, which is kind of cool. So jumping into the back of the Volvo V60, you can see why people would buy a station wagon over an SUV. I feel like I've got more legroom than I would in most SUVs, and it's because of this longer wheelbase and the fact that you don't have to adjust for a higher car means I get plenty of legroom back here. Sitting behind my actual driving position, I'm 5'11". I've got more than enough feet room, although you do have to note that your feet do sort of squeeze underneath the seat if you have bigger feet like mine, but my knee room is absolutely fine. My headroom is okay, but if you have a taller torso and you're closing in on, say, like 6'4", 6'5", you will start hitting your head on this roof, which seems to be a little bit lower thanks to this giant glass roof. I do like the glass roof though, because even though it opens up the front, it doesn't really have a thick middle piece, so it means that it sort of feels like a bit of an uninterrupted view out the top of this car. I've also got 4-zone climate control in here, which is fantastic, so I can control my own temperature and my own seat back here, and so can everyone else in the car except the middle seat passenger. We have 2 USB-C ports back here, so that's quite useful and means you can charge on the go, and I do like the touch controls for the actual climate controls in the back, and you can lock it to avoid kids accidentally playing with it or anyone wanting to adjust it. You can lock it for whatever reason, but otherwise you can go ahead and adjust it using the touch screen back here, and it's quite upmarket for how much this car costs. Now it's still very ergonomic back here. I have plenty of places to rest my hands. I like the center console here with some storage in the actual unit itself, and you have pop-out cup holders, which are very useful, so it's all very practical, and the way the armrests stick out from the car's door just makes this feel so comfortable to sit here for long trips. And I really could see myself doing a really long road trip with 4 people in here and everyone being so comfortable. This is pretty much the ultimate road trip machine. Now the only issue is that this middle seat passenger will suffer from having no feet room whatsoever because of the large transmission and exhaust tunnel. They have to stick their feet on the other side, so this middle seat is really just as more of a jump seat for 3 people across the back. I would say for adults this is going to be comfortable to have 4 people, because otherwise you're playing footsies with whoever cops the middle seat. Now, the boot of the Volvo V60 is part of the reason why you consider getting it. It's because it's a station wagon, it's nice and long, and you get plenty of space in the back. You get over 500 litres back here, and that's with all the seats up. That's pretty decent, although it doesn't really have the super high entry that some SUVs have, but this is still pretty high for most needs, and even a bit more if you need to fit larger items. It should do a good job of covering all bases. Now, you can open the boot just using a button from the inside, on the back, on your key, or even wave your foot underneath the car, but I found waving your foot underneath the car just to be a little bit sporadic, and I found it even to close on me when I accidentally had my foot underneath it, not intending to close the boot. So it's just a bit of an interesting little mechanism. I'm not a big fan of it, but you can open it with your foot if you manage to. I like the boot cover back here as well. It sort of opens as it normally would and, you know, keeps everything nice and hidden, but also you can extend it up so you can get more of an ease of entry but still have your items covered up, which I think is kind of a cute little addition here. Now, seats fold in a 60-40 split, but that doesn't mean you have to fold them down if you want to put long items through. There's a little cubby in the middle seat which allows you to put long items like skis, snowboards, or any other things straight through the middle of the car, and it really keeps in the spirit of this being a touring car and being a great road trip vehicle because you don't have to compromise people's comfort by putting long items through. Seats can stay up and long items can pass through that little cubby hole. Now, I like this little divider that pops up in this boot and actually helps divide a larger space into two smaller spaces. It's got a little piece of elastic that runs along the back so you can secure any loose items there, and there's two bag hooks there as well to help shopping bags or anything else not slide around. I really like this little feature. You've also got a little net as well to secure any items as large as, say, like a jacket. Additionally, there is a space saver spare underneath the boot floor. It's not a full-size spare, but at least we have something rather than one of those repair kits. Now, I want to see if this cross-country tramp stamp actually means something. So I've taken this on a bit of an off-road little track to see how far it will go. So this is the B5 variant of the Volvo V60 range, and that essentially means this has a mild hybrid system. A mild hybrid simply means that you get an extra battery pack to help fill gaps between low revs and sometimes between gear changes. It's basically like getting a battery boost for when you're driving. It's designed to help with fuel economy a little bit as well, and so we'll see just how effective that is in a little bit. Basically, what we have under the bonnet is a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol motor, which is paired up to that mild hybrid system. It's producing 183 kilowatts and 350 newton meters of torque, all going through this automatic transmission that's going through to an all-wheel drive system. Now, claimed 0 to 100 time is 6.6 seconds, so I'm going to jump into dynamic mode and see just how that feels. So we're leaving a gravel track because obviously that's where we started, and let's get going. Oh, that is such a good sound for a station wagon. Wow, you actually get those little like DSG farts between gear shifts, and oh, that just sounds great. So if you think this doesn't sound as good, or you don't think it's gonna sound good because it's a Volvo, well, think again. Dynamic mode actually creates some proper exhaust sounds out the back when you're getting on it. Now, what I can tell you is that there is a little bit of lack of engagement if you want to change your own gears, because it's a bit weird this way. If you want to go into dynamic mode like we are now, you go and press down into manual mode, and then instead of paddles or pushing back and forth like a sequential pattern, you actually move the shifter side to side. So you go left to go down and right to go up a gear. I've never seen that before, but that is a very interesting little quirk on this Volvo. And so we can go ahead and shift down, slow down a little bit, and we can really get a feel for this performance. A mild hybrid system also provides power as well, so it's quite useful in a car like this. And so I love performance estates, and this is giving me some vibes that this might be a little bit of a sleeper, which it is. 0 to 106.6 seconds for a family car is pretty respectable, especially one that costs as little as this compared to how much a performance sedan, compared to how much a performance station wagon might cost, which is well north of $150,000. Now, in addition to that, the mild hybrid system is claimed to give you a expected average fuel economy range of 7.4 litres per 100 Ks. If I look down into our trip information, I can see that we're averaging around 12 litres per 100 Ks. That's partly because obviously I've just tested the dynamic mode just back there, and also we're doing some off-roading, which is requiring a lot of start-stop and a bit of deeper throttle. So I actually average below 10 litres per 100 Ks getting out to this location, so I could see 7.5 litres being achieved on a longer stretch of highway, but around town I would say you're looking between 10 to 12 litres per 100 Ks of consumption in this car. Now, don't be fooled about how big this thing looks on the outside. It actually drives like a small to medium size SUV. You're lifted off the ground a bit, so your eye height with pretty much every other taller car on the road, except for some really tall utes when you pull next to them. But thanks to the ride height and also the way the seating position is adjusted, I actually feel like I'm driving an SUV and not a station wagon. So if that's something that's putting you off a station wagon because you think you're gonna be sitting dead nice and low, well, I can tell you the cross country feels like you are sitting in an SUV. Now, there's plenty of safety features here. You can see this giant IntelliSafe system here that we could see on the outside of this car through the windshield. It is a massive system here, and it's basically eyes on the road. It allows you to do pretty smart radar cruise control, so we can go ahead here and put on pilot assist is what it's called. So we can go ahead and set our radar cruise, and away we go. It's basically self-steering, and we'll see how it performs on this little turn here. I'm not gonna put any inputs into it. Yep, nice. I like how responsive that is. It's not drifting to either side of the lane, and it will tell me to apply steering now. That is a very good system there. I've had people online tell me that this seems to be as good as Tesla's systems, which is actually one of the best radar cruise systems in the industry. And I would say this is quite up there. It's probably on par with what Kia and Hyundai are doing, and those guys are pretty much at the top of the game for this sort of stuff. So I really think this is a good radar cruise system, and overall feels like a very comfortable car. Additionally, the build quality really stands out here as well. There's no rattle squeaks or anything out of place in here. It really feels like a premium product. And again, I cannot believe the price that they're asking for this. At around $64,990 starting, I definitely wouldn't hesitate to throw my money at this, because I know I'm getting a quality product both in the driving department on road and also for the quality materials and the fact that I'm driving along here and it's not a facade. It really feels like a proper premium product, which all modern Volvos feel like, but this really stands out as one of the better examples that Volvo makes today. Now let's end this driving section with some sharp corners, because this is a lifted station wagon, so you are losing some of that lower center of gravity by opting for this car. But really what I'm finding is that thanks to its wide stance and its touring chassis tune, which is part of the reason why you get this, that's something that Volvo promotes, that this has a specific touring chassis, it really feels nice and planted. And we're going to go through a sharp corner through here. I've left it in comfort because most people aren't going to put it into dynamic before they jump into some corners. They're probably just going to be in comfort and come across corners like this. I can feel some lean, sort of dips towards the front right tire. We're going to the left. That's pretty flat. This is an off camber going to a sharp left corner. But see, the lean is more feel. I'm not feeling like this car is wallowing. It really does feel like I've got plenty of grip. And let's really take this corner a bit quicker. Yeah, that's fine. That's really quite good. The extra height that you get in this car really doesn't compromise how this thing drives. It is still quite a good little canyon carver. Oh, here we go, dipping through here. Looking up, perfect, look at that, sweet. Yeah, look, it's not gonna be a performance estate through corners, it's not gonna replicate anything like that. Let's shift it into dynamic mode to see if that changes anything. So we're going through, very nice. We're holding gears a bit longer through here as well. Okay, yeah, look, so dynamic mode gives you a bit of a quicker turning ratio, but really in comfort mode, you're gonna be just fine going through that. And it's really comfortable overall. It's not an upsetting ride, and it doesn't feel like it really wants to tip over either, like you might expect in a taller SUV. So cornering, very impressive again. So we're off-road now, and we have 210 millimeters of ground clearance, all-wheel drive, And we even have a drive mode for off-roading. So I'm in off-road mode, which is intended for off-road use. And let's get going. So essentially what off-road mode does is tell the car that yes, it's gonna be on some slippery surfaces, and then also it's gonna engage hill descent control. So it can be a little bit annoying to engage actually if you wanna go a little bit faster on some unsealed roads. Now where I am right now isn't the same test that I take other SUVs and off-roaders on. It's a bit of a milder test because this isn't really intended to go rock crawling or anything like that. And unfortunately, I had a go at trying to attack the first hill going into our off-road section, and I just thought that the front overhang was just a little bit too much, and this car is just far too long to be able to clear some sharper humps in the road. So basically, this is sort of limited for rough dirt trails or anything that's, you know, maybe a bit more aggressive than normal gravel roads, but I wouldn't go to say that this thing would be a good option to go off-roading. That's just the first and foremost part of it. This is an overlanding vehicle and it does a really good job at that. It's got a touring chassis, which I mentioned when I was on the road, and that just simply means that this thing is obviously a bit more set up for comfort, and it's true here. I really feel like I'm extremely comfortable even though we're riding on 19-inch alloy wheels, and these wheels and tires actually do a good job of gripping this surface even though it's quite slippery. And if you even go to stomp, there's no real slip from this car at all. It does a really good job of gripping to this loose surface. Now, as for the driving dynamics, it's just nice and plush. The only thing that this car doesn't have compared to some more expensive versions of estates that can go off-road is that it doesn't have air suspension. It's just coil springs, but they're very well adapted for a surface like this, and I don't feel like I need to adjust them higher or lower, but I would have maybe liked a smidge more ground clearance to get at least through the first stage of our off-road section. However, that extra ground clearance is very much needed through here because it provides plenty of comfort, and it also allows for a bit more of a forgiving ride when you go over some rough sections like that. So overall, I am very impressed with the performance of the V60 cross country on an unsealed surface. However, just don't think about taking this deep into off-road territory where you might take something like a Subaru Outback, or maybe even something a bit more aggressive like a Land Rover or a lifted four-wheel drive. So if you're looking for the ideal family station wagon, look no further than the Volvo V60. I think it's the perfect middle ground between the Audi A4 All-Road and the Mercedes All-Terrain in terms of price, features, and space. I think this is a fantastic option for the family if you are allergic to SUVs like I am, and if I had to have a family car tomorrow, I'd definitely be considering one of these. I'm a big fan of the attention to detail in this car because I'm a sucker for attention to detail, and that is where this car really shines for me. It's everything from the little practical elements to the way you interact with this car. I am a big fan of this vehicle. The new 2-litre mild hybrid system is also a treat, and if you're missing out on a bit of dynamic flair because you think you have to buy the boring family car, at least this comes alive with a bit of an exhaust burble, and dynamic mode actually makes this fun to drive, and it's relatively quick. The extra ground clearance makes this an awesome choice to go down to the snow, for example, or head out to the farm. However, just don't think this will be something you can go weekend off-roading with because it becomes a little bit limited with its ride height. And if you're getting tired of SUVs, but you still need all the space of one, this is definitely an excellent alternative. Now, thank you so much for watching. My name's Cameron. This has been Product Review Cars, and I'll see you in the next one.